3 wins. That is all that is separating this year's San Antonio Spurs team from last year's Spurs. The only difference? There are still 44 games left in the season. And that right there should give you an idea of the improvement that the Spurs and obviously Victor Wembanyama have made in such a short period of time. Because while some people have used the Spurs record against Wemby when discussing how great he has been, those people should realize going from one of the worst teams in the NBA to a playoff level team in just a year is impressive. And it's more impressive when you consider how they've done it. I mean, as great as Chris Paul has been, as great as Stephon Castle has been, and the improvements we've seen from the likes of Jeremy Sochan and Julian Champagny, the reason the Spurs are a playoff team is because their best player is just about as good as any team's best player. The only difference, well, he's in year 2 of his career and just became legally allowed to drink alcohol less than 2 weeks ago. But that's not stopping him from averaging nearly 25, 11, 4, and 4 a game. Yes, that last 4 is for blocks. And with that in mind, I think you have to start on the defensive end of the floor when talking about Wemby. Because so far this season, with Vic on the floor, the Spurs have had a defensive rating of 107.2, which would rank 3rd in the NBA. And it's this kind of impact which has him in pole position to win his first DPOY in just his 2nd year. And at risk of spending this entire video talking solely about Wemby's defense, let's make it simple. In the Spurs' recent game against the Lakers, watch Wemby here guarding Jackson Hayes in the paint. The second the ball gets swung to connect in the corner, Wemby is able to close out and block the jumper. Now, a quarter later, Wemby is staying within reach of Anthony Davis at the 3-point line. Rui cuts backdoor, and even with a great pass from LeBron, Wemby is able to cover that layup attempt at the rim. In the most simplest terms, because I want to talk about other players on this team, Victor Wembanyama can cover every spot on the floor. NBA players are terrified of him for that exact reason, and it's probably worse when they aren't terrified of him, because that results in him racking up 8 to 10 block games like it's nothing. There is no ceiling to what Wemby could be on the defensive end of the floor, and we're continuing to see that on a nightly basis, which is leading to the Spurs being a much improved team on the season. But it's more than just Wemby. The reason I believe in this Spurs team long-term defensively is because they are putting the right pieces around Vic. And in my opinion, one of those pieces is Jeremy Sochan. Because after being called the worst player in the NBA last year, after being called a Wemby hater, yes, that was really a thing. People were suggesting Jeremy Sochan was so jealous of Wemby that he was refusing to pass him the ball, and it had nothing to do with the fact he was playing point guard for the first time in his career, not NBA career, since he started playing basketball. But after those hilarious narratives, Jeremy has continued to improve on both ends of the floor, improving his scoring, his field goal percentage, his rebounding, and continuing to make an impact defensively. And what you get with Sochan defensively is elite rebounding, which sometimes people forget is a part of defense. You get versatility, you get effort, and also at his size, with his length, he can give you some of that secondary rim protection as well. Like on this play where Kobe White blows past Vassell, and look at the length of Sochan to get up there and block that shot. Or just look at him on this play against Anthony Edwards, using his strength and size to absorb the contact from Ant on the initial drive, forcing the miss, and then on the offensive board, as Ant goes up, Sochan is there to block the second shot attempt. Or how about this play, which shows off the uniqueness of Sochan as a player, where he contests the jumper, then follows up and blocks Randall at the rim. But he's not done there, because he grabs the loose ball and throws a perfect dime to Wemby for the and one. And that is the kind of play which made Greg Popovich put him at point guard. Obviously that didn't completely work out, but when you have those kind of passing skills and handling skills at the 4 position next to Vic, all of a sudden things look very, very good for San Antonio. And you can't talk about this new look Spurs team without mentioning their rookie, because while so many people ridiculed this draft class and even ridiculed the Spurs for not picking Rob Dillingham and instead trading that pick, San Antonio had a vision. They knew who they wanted and exactly why they they wanted Stephon Castle, and one of those major reasons was defense, because even as a rookie, Stephon Castle has already proven himself to be a nightmare defensively for opposition guards, holding Steph Curry to one of his worst shooting nights of the season, chasing him everywhere around screens, preventing him from getting backdoor cuts, and forcing him into misses that you don't see Steph Curry forced into very often. You pair that movement with serious strength and the ability to guard bigger wings and forwards, and you get a guy similar to Jeremy Sochan, but at the guard position. And if any of these three guys fulfill their defensive potential, we could be looking at an all-time great defense. I don't believe that's an exaggeration at all to say. I mean, Wemby alone is going to make this a great defense, but those guys in addition to it, yeah. And I have more confidence in everyone fulfilling their potential when they have the point guard himself as a mentor. But he's not just a Udonis Haslem level mentor, with all due respect. You could make an argument Chris Paul has been the second most impactful Spurs player on the court this season, because like he does every single time he joins a new team, he helps them improve. And whilst his scoring might not be what it once was, this is still one of the best passes in the NBA. And you've seen his ability to put the ball in the right spots for Wemby in pick and roll situations, but also use the gravity Wemby has to find open shooters as well. Like on this play, where Wemby sets the screen, and with Rui helping over to try and double, he slings the pass to Castle in the corner for the bucket. Or again on this play where Finney-Smith is helping over to prevent the pass to Wemby, and CP3 rifles the pass to Vassell in the corner. This is what happens when you have a generational talent alongside one of the best players of all time, who even at 50 years old is still as smart and as skillful as he's ever been. And he's going to be using all of that skill and smarts to instill upon every single player on this Spurs roster. And look, Harrison Barnes isn't Chris Paul, but he's another example of bringing a solid veteran presence and the impact that can have on a young team. Just giving you stability as a reliable knockdown shooter, a guy capable of scoring inside the paint, and also someone who knows where to be on the defensive end of the floor, which you could also say about Julian Champagnie, who has been somewhat of a revelation this year, going from under 7 points a game last year to being an incredibly high-volume three-point shooter for the Spurs. And don't be deceived by the shooting splits, because I know it's easy to see the 42% and think he's been inefficient, but that is deceiving when more than 70% of his shots are coming from three-point range. All you need to know is he is a guy that is providing great spacing for Wemby, not just spotting up in the corner, but coming off handoffs, relocating, and knocking down threes in transition. And most importantly, he is only making $3 million a year over the next 2.5 seasons. And when you pair this with Wemby's rookie contract and Stephon Castle's rookie contract, the Spurs will have so much cap room to make some serious moves over the next couple of seasons, and it's only a matter of time before they're not just competing for a play-in spot, but for a championship. Yes, it will be that soon.